What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Eye on the U, the Miami Herald show about all things Miami Hurricanes. And we are now at post-regular season, waiting to see the fate of the University of Miami football team. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, joined as always by Jordan McPherson. Jordan, playoff time is right around the corner. It's conference championship week. Unfortunately for the Hurricanes, they did not make it to the ACC championship. We knew it was going to be a super long shot for them to make it after that second loss in the middle of the season. But still a chance. Still a chance. I'm thinking of that Dumb and Dumber skit where he's like, so you're saying there's a chance? Yeah. It's not I don't know. I don't know anymore if it's a great chance, a fair chance, what it is, but I just know they're still alive. There's still some scenarios that could get them into the college football playoff. If justice is served, they should get in. And I think now is an interesting one that we talked about off camera for a little bit. They need maybe one result, and it might just be the thing. But again, it puts it on the committee to do the right thing and put Miami in over Notre Dame. We're going to dive into all of that, where the playoff rankings stand so far. We're going to talk a little bit about just not only Miami's bigwigs, including their AD, jumping in and making a case for them. Even the ACC just plastering their channel, social media, you name it, trying to get Miami into the playoff. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. And we'll look back on the regular season, regardless of what happens this weekend, regardless of the outcome, how Miami improved this year. Obviously, the two losses that put them in this predicament sting, but a lot of things were positive for the team. We'll kind of look at the good and the bad from the regular season. And of course, we got to talk about signing day. Miami with another top 10 class. We'll go over the key pickups that they had in this signing class as well. But let's start with those playoff rankings, Jordan. Number 12, they didn't move, but Alabama did, and Notre Dame did. And now the Big 12 championship is must-see TV for Hurricanes fans at noon on Saturday.
Yeah, who would have thought that Miami Hurricanes would be hinging on the Texas Tech Red Raiders against the BYU Cougars? Who would have ever thought that this would be the scenario we were in? But yes, that's where we're at right now. The committee flipped Alabama over Notre Dame. Bama's now 9. Notre Dame is now 10 because Bama had a quote-unquote gutsy win over a 5-7 Auburn team at which they blew a 2-touchdown lead. Interesting. Very interesting. And the Miami-Notre Dame comparison, while they're within 2 spots of each other, still isn't being considered head-to-head because, quote-unquote, we're comparing all of those teams in that collective bubble of Alabama, Notre Dame, BYU, and Miami. The committee thought Bama was better than Notre Dame after, again, that gutsy win over a 5-7 Auburn. Kudos Alabama for doing that. They think Notre Dame is better than both BYU and Miami collectively, even though, I mean, I've 27-24. I don't know how many more times I'm going to have to say it. If you want to see it 13 times, it's going to be all over the ACC network Friday and Saturday. So
if you want to see it on a loop,
yeah, just have your fix. I mean, you can just see the results on the field for yourself with, again, that eye test, which I was there. I saw it with my 2 eyes. Andre, you've seen it multiple times with your 2 eyes. The 10.8 million who watched the game when it happened on August 31st, they have eyes. I mean, the Hills have eyes. I wonder which eyes the committees watch this game with. But that said, Notre Dame, in the committee's eyes, whichever 24 eyes that 12-person committee is using, thinks Notre Dame is ahead of both BYU and Miami collectively, which is how they're getting out of the whole head-to-head conversation. And they think BYU head-to-head with Miami is better than Miami, which is why Miami is still 2 spots behind. My head hurts just saying all of that, but had to say it all in one breath or else I was just going to get exacerbated. So we were going to get it all in one go.
I mean, if everybody wants to watch CJ Daniels' acrobatic catch on a loop, go for it too. I mean, remind everybody.
I mean, I've been watching that even before, and I watched it again on Saturday when you had another one of those in the final moments against Pitt last weekend. I mean, again, it was just, I saw that catch, it was like, that reminds me of Notre Dame. I wonder what else reminds me of Notre Dame. Oh yeah, wins, especially head-to-head wins. But like you said, with the BYU game, it brings up a very interesting scenario because CFP Selection Committee Chair Hunter Yurachek did say on Tuesday when the latest rankings came out, idle teams are able to move in the rankings, including jumping over each other, which means if somehow Miami and Notre Dame are directly ranked right next to each other, head-to-head finally has to come into factor, right? Because he also said that it's easier to use head-to-head when you are right next to each other in the rankings, which kind of makes sense because Oklahoma, with probably the worst resume of two-loss teams, is the highest-ranked two-loss team because why? Oh, yeah, they're directly ahead of Alabama, who they beat. But even then, they were 2 spots ahead of Alabama last week, who they beat. So head-to-head worked there. Even a 3-loss Texas team is ahead of Vanderbilt because they beat Vanderbilt head-to-head. A 3-loss team is ahead of a 2-loss team they beat head-to-head, while a 2-loss Miami is not ahead of a 2-loss Notre Dame, who they beat head-to-head. I'm going to just stop beating that horse, say it like 6 or 7 more times at minimum over the next 15 minutes. But the conference championship stuff. Well, BYU and Alabama are both in their conference championship games. Long story short, if both of them win, Miami and Notre Dame are both completely out. They're going to take those 2 at-large bubble spots. We know that that's just set in stone because the 5 conference champions automatically get in. There are going to be 2 conference champions ranked below Miami and this entire bubble that are going to get in, whether it's the ACC champion of Virginia or Duke. Congratulations, 5-loss Duke on making it in because of the tiebreaker of conference opponent win percentage. Yes, that is a thing. That is a thing I had to stress myself out over the last 3 weeks more than I ever thought I would. Or if Duke somehow wins, whether if the winner of the American, which is either going to be North Texas or Tulane, it feels like that team's going to be a lock no matter what. It's a matter of whether it's Virginia or if Duke has to compete with a James Madison Sun Belt team that just got ranked in the top 25 this week. So Virginia, Duke, or the Dukes will be the final team in the playoffs.
You know, it's going to be
versus Dukes in there.
You know, it's going to be funny if Duke wins the ACC and James Madison loses the Sun Belt title, then you are going to have for sure you're going to have a 5-loss conference champion in the playoff, probably, maybe
most
right?
likely. Unless again, they can go down to the other ones again. You got the Mountain West. You have UNLV against Boise State. UNLV has 2 losses. Who knows? Who knows what the again? This is assuming that we know.
I'm gonna scrape the bottom of the barrel here, Jordan. Yeah. Hold on, I'll be right back. That's exactly what they're doing.
Exactly what they're doing. Yeah, but with this stuff, Miami's best case very likely is Alabama winning the SEC championship and BYU losing. And hear me out on this. Yes, Alabama winning takes away one of those 2 spots, but if BYU loses and loses by enough, and remember, they lost by 20-something at Texas Tech earlier this year, they should drop below Miami. That would put Miami and Notre Dame next to each other.
Right.
If Alabama wins, Alabama would stay above Notre Dame. But if Alabama loses, I could see the committee flipping Notre Dame and Bama again and then going, there's a team in the middle. There's that buffer. We don't have to worry about head-to-head. Notre Dame and Bama get the last 2 spots. Miami's out. Right. So if Bama wins, it forces them to decide between Notre Dame and Miami for the last spot, where, in the words of the committee, head-to-head is easier to use and basically is used when teams are directly next to each other in the standings.
Yeah.
So if Bama wins and BYU loses, it literally forces the committee's hand to determine whether or not they actually use head-to-head. And I know we're going to talk more in depth about people making their case, but I want to say, because it actually makes sense to say here, Mario Cristobal on Wednesday, when making UM's case, flat out reminded us that there has not been an instance in CFP history where, when a head-to-head was involved in determining who makes the field, that a head-to-head winner was left out of a field when the head-to-head loser made it in the history of the college football playoff involving Power 5 teams with identical records. So this would set a precedent, a wrong precedent, if it were to happen this year.
There was such an example. There was such an example, which I brought up the other day during the BCS era. Let's go back, if we go back to 2000, when Miami beat the Seminoles, and they took the Seminoles anyway and put them against Oklahoma.
Yes.
But yes, in the CFP more recent era, it hasn't happened yet.
Yes.
But I mean, this is like this whole thing is like, if these were people, like we were talking about individuals, it's like when somebody doesn't get fired and they're terrible at their job, and you're like, do they have dirty pictures on somebody?
Yeah.
Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like it's incredible. Like, why the fixation on not being able to take something into consideration where you do in other cases? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just mind-boggling at this point. But yeah, I mean, the scenario you just said makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because if Alabama wins, obviously Georgia's not going to drop that much.
Correct.
So no harm in that. And it puts them on the spot. And honestly, whatever happens. I hope they're put on the spot.
Yes.
And not to like single out Alabama, but let's not forget who also got taken in the top 4 over another team. I know it's a Miami rival, but we keep using the FSU, quote unquote screw job.
Yeah, no, and I was in the camp of FSU getting screwed the year it happened. I mean, they were an undefeated team. They used the logic of the team was different without Travis Jordan, but that team, sorry. Again, Jordan.
Sorry.
Yeah, again,
We're flipping too many things.
Yes,
we're flipping
there we
Alabama,
go.
Notre Dame,
without Jordan Travis.
names.
Yes, my apologies, Jordan. And again, my name.
I know. Come on.
How dare I? But they were like, their logic was that they had data points that the team was different. Do you mean like beating a rival on the road and winning a conference championship over a ranked opponent by double digits? Those are data points to keep an undefeated team out. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But they don't have data.
The same team.
Yeah, but they don't have data points for what a one-loss Ole Miss team looks like without Lane Kiffin or basically any of their coaches. So they'll be able to stay in no problem this year. So
right,
there we go.
Yeah, the hypocrisy of it is unbelievable. But we could fill a whole show with that. But let's tell us a little bit about just the lobbying going on, which understandably was coming from the UM camp. But the part that really made me laugh was when the ACC went full throttle. And like you mentioned before, not only the 13 different airings of the game, but they plastered social media with stats and figures. Look like kind of like how you do it on this show with all the numbers and everything. They were merciless going on there, which was pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically everybody who's anybody in the UM world has basically been stating their case. Dan Radakovich on Monday he sent out an open letter to UM Athletics, which he does once a month anyway, that led with basically Miami's case. And remember, Dan Radakovich, when he was at Clemson, was on the CFP selection committee for 4 years.
Right.
I think he knows what he's talking about. Obviously, there is the Hurricane skew on his side because he is now the Hurricanes AD. He needs to say his case for his school. Completely understandable.
Right, that's the problem.
But the thing is, he also knows what goes on in the room, which very few people know what goes on in that room because they keep everything like it's a top secret about what exactly they reference, what exactly they're looking at, because, I mean, it feels like it changes week to week anyway. But Radakovich, again, like everybody else, brought up the head-to-head. He brought up a bunch of the advanced metrics, which are what people are using to sort of skew why Miami isn't in there. He points out Miami's 6th in the latest Sangren rankings, which is ahead of 7 different SEC teams, including Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma. 5 playoff teams. Interesting. Miami ranked 7th in ESPN's FPI, the Football Power Index, which is ahead of Georgia, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, and BYU. Interesting. Miami is also 9th in the latest SP Plus rankings, which is ahead of Utah, Alabama, and Oklahoma. Oh, and BYU also. Interesting. Obviously, there's one team that is not directly mentioned in there. That is Notre Dame. But Notre Dame's rankings in all of those are at most 1 or 2 spots ahead of Miami, which is basically fractional points. And Miami has this little thing called head-to-head. I think we've discussed it once or twice. So, again, that was his case. Post-game Saturday, Mario Cristobal and the 4 players we got to talk to, Carson Beck, Wesley Bassane, James Brockermeyer, and Malachi Toney, all gave their case about why they should do it. And again, you saw what we did on the field. The committee said we weren't consistent enough after the 2 losses in 3-week stretch, which fair. They lost the Louisville game. They lost the SMU game. But in the 4-game sense, the wins over NC State, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, and Pitt outscored the opponent 151-41. They never trailed in any of those games. They gave up, I think, no more than 7 points in the first half of any of those games. They found, and again, they were never they were always up by at least double digits by the first few minutes of the third quarter in every single one of those games. game control, which, again, if you're talking about the eye test and how good a team is, not just the final score, Miami passed the eye test with flying colors in those 4 weeks, including that domination against Pitt, 38-7. Could have just been 31-7 if Pitt didn't decide to call a timeout with 30 seconds left to try to get the ball one more time when they were down by 4 scores already. And Miami just gave him the middle finger and had Carson Beck throw a fade route CJ Daniels, which, you know what? If you're going to punt down 3 scores with 9 minutes left and then use your timeouts with less than a minute left, yeah, you know what? Go off. At that point, yeah.
Second week in a row was this week's.
Yeah. That was this week's kill shot.
Yeah. So,
yeah. So
it's good. I love when I love seeing that because it's like, okay, fine.
Yeah. And that win by 31 was a larger margin than Notre Dame's win over Pitt, which I wonder if a certain Pitt coach made a comment entering that game, that Notre Dame game, saying we could lose this game 100-10 or 3 or something like that, and it won't matter for us. All that matters for us is the ACC championship game, which they needed to win. Pitt needed to win that Miami game to have a shot at the ACC championship game, and they looked worse than they did against Notre Dame.
Right.
So a team that was trying, probably more so in that Miami game, and looked worse than they did against Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Huh. It's almost like the common opponent thing is sort of a factor as well.
And a team that was coming off their biggest win of the year,
against
going to Georgia Tech, the team that basically had the ACC title game all wrapped up with a victory there. The team that had been the most consistent ACC team this season up to that point. And Pitt not only went in there, but went in there and beat them pretty well too. I mean, they went up 28-0. So Miami just did that to that team on their home turf.
Yeah.
And then that immediately throws out the window the whole thing about the previous 3 wins being weak against weak opponents. Well, hey, look, they just did it against a ranked Pitt team. And probably, honestly, if you look at all the games Miami's played, with the exception of maybe the NC in the recent stretch, except for the NC State game, they thoroughly dominated that one. This one, again, it never looked like they were in that much jeopardy of losing that game. Like VTech at the end kind of made a little run, and you're like, hope they don't blow this.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I think it was the Stanford game was shaky for a half until they pulled away. No, this was start to finish.
Yeah, it was Syracuse was the first half. There was like no offense, and they got
also too.
They got 14. They got 14-0 really quick in the final 2 minutes of the first half, and just took off from there.
Right, but this isn't in any of the games that they were really favored to win in like the second half of the season. I threw Stanford in there too because I remember Stanford was also dicey for a half.
Yes.
But there was no diciness in this one. This one was, and it's against a ranked opponent, which now I know they fell, but still at the time we're going to talk about time travel, and at the time, well, guess what? At the time, this was a team, like you said, vying to get in the ACC title game and was ranked. So count that. Put that in your pipe.
Yeah, and then just
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good, Jerry. That's good. And then just a couple other quick hits from the UM side of it. Mario Cristobal, he gave a close to 600-word response on Wednesday in the middle of his signing day presser about Miami's case for the CFP, and it was mostly just comparing them to Notre Dame. And I'll just give a couple of the quick highlights. I'm not going to read the entire 600 words here. If you want, the full comment is on the Miami Herald website. He obviously talked about, which he has said multiple times over the last couple of weeks, head-to-head is always the final factor in determining things. You point to their margin of victory over the last 4 games, which is about 28 points per game. Every metric that they have right now is among the top 10 nationally over this final month, which the committee cares about how you finish. But then when you look at Notre Dame's resume, which is where Mario really started to go out, you break it down. They have their 2 losses to start the year. They have 2 losses, just like Miami. One of the losses is to Miami. Okay, back to the talking point. Of their 10 wins since, which the committee's been hyping about how great they've looked over the final 10 weeks, 2 were against Group of 5 opponents, Navy and Boise State. The other 8, 6 of those 8 were against defenses that rank 105th to 127th nationally in total defense.
Well, yeah. They put up 70 against the Syracuse team that's basically quit on the season at this point.
And had a lacrosse player at quarterback.
Right.
They had their 3rd or 4th or 8th string quarterback in. But they start going, and Mario's right. He's basically like, if you give me that schedule, give me 6. If you give me 6 opponents with bottom 25 defenses with my offense, I'll do. Right. Yeah. I'll pile up a resume. I can give you a resume, no problem.
I can drop 60 and 70 on people.
Yeah. Everyone's talking about how great Jeremiah Love is doing to close out the season. How many yards did he have against Miami? Oh, yeah, he was in the 30s on 10 carries. He averaged 3 yards a carry against Miami. And his final point was, if you want to talk about the eye test, look at the metrics of how Miami held so many of their opponents this year to their worst metrics of the season. Notre Dame being a big example, Pitt being an example. I'm pretty sure Virginia Tech and basically that entire 4-week stretch was, if not their worst, among their worst that they had all season. The Florida Gators, who, yes, they went 4-8. They beat a certain 3-loss Texas team that is trying to stump its way into the playoffs. That Florida team handled Texas. Miami didn't allow them to convert a single third down. And then there's that whole Florida State game, which, yes, Florida State started to come back in the fourth quarter, but Miami had, in terms of game control and win probability, was in 90% all the way because, they were up by 20-something going into the fourth quarter. Alabama, what was Alabama's score against them? 31-17 loss. So Mario Cristobal, he presented all of that in as well-mannered and as calm of a fashion as he could. And I get what he's doing. He's not trying to go out there and rage and get angry and start yelling and shouting because that does them no good. Right. That does Miami no good in this. So he
saves that for privacy, with closed doors.
Because, exactly. Yeah. He's probably in the room letting all the anger out, letting all the frustration out. Deep breath, walk out. Hey, everyone. Hello, everyone. Here's our case.
Let me tell you, Mario played in it. I, as a kid, watched it. For those of us who lived the mid-late 80s and watched, yes, you're my old moment of the week. For those of us who lived and watched the late 80s rivalry, that it's not just the fact that all this is going on, but it's who it's against.
Yeah.
Miami, especially in those days, and Mario is old school to that. You do not like Notre Dame at all. Yeah. Like there's a hatred there, and that's bubbling to the surface right now. Yes. Trust me, with all of this, and all, not only him, but anyone who's like the old school of Miami. It's not. They could be. It would still hurt. It would still be irritating if this was happening against the case would be against another team. But it's that much more because of who it is. Trust me. So he's even as you see him saying all that, he's holding back.
Yeah. Yep.
It may explode if this screw job.
I'm fully looking forward to Sunday if Miami is not in the field.
Yeah, it may explode around 1:00 if this doesn't go their way.
Yes.
So yeah. But speaking of all of that, all right, let's we've dedicated a lot to this, and naturally so, because obviously it's the big topic, not only around these parts, but around college football right now. It's
not just college football. I mean, Marco Rubio made the case for Miami at a national, whatever the heck the press conference was, to which Mario Cristobal quipped going, something's up when you have a Florida Gator campaigning on your behalf.
Is that crazy?
Which the UF alumna and myself started laughing in the press conference room as he said that because, well, I've been doing the same thing for a month. So I get it.
Yeah, it's like, visibility and all that stuff.
Big difference. No, of course, big difference. But yes.
Well, Marco Rubio is a big football guy. I don't know because he used to sometimes be on the sidelines at high school games back in the day and all of that. Yeah,
no, the year I covered state in 2019, he was on the sideline for the Columbus State Championship game against Mandarin, which Carson Beck was the quarterback for Mandarin that game. Just shout out that one.
Yeah. So not surprised. He's paying very close attention to what's going on.
Yeah.
But speaking of all of that, look, regardless of the outcome, let's talk a little bit about just this season. And yes, the Louisville loss was disappointing. The SMU loss was disappointing. But at the same time, this team did something that we were hoping to see out of Miami. They finished we say finished. It maybe for their
sake, from a regular season standpoint.
From a regular season standpoint. Hopefully for their sake, it's not finished completely yet.
From a November standpoint.
Correct. To that point, this team had a lot of meltdowns, even last year. So to see them not only completed on a winning streak, but the way they did on a winning streak was a big positive sign for this team. And I think we can combine both of these. Jordan, talk a little bit about just what went right and maybe the things to improve in this team. And we'll also take a peek at the signing class as part of that trending upward for the future, because again, another top 10 class. But Malachi Toney is an obvious one, rookie of the year, freshman of the year in college football. I mean, he's made a huge case. more than anything, you put some notes down here. I like the both lines of scrimmage. I think up front, Miami did something they hadn't done in a while, and they really dominated on both sides for a big chunk of the season and a lot in games. We saw one example, speaking of the Gators, was the way they just pounded the football the entire game. I mean, the score wasn't as pretty as it probably could have been in terms of a blowout win, but those methodical drives, you hadn't seen a Miami team do that in a long time.
Correct. Yeah, no, it's just, again, all around. I mean, yes, those two losses were tough. Carson Beck throwing 4 interceptions against Louisville. The SMU game, that was just a debacle all around between Miami not being able to execute and need to execute. A lot of issues with the refereeing, which obviously that's not the excuse that they're going to make, but there were a lot of issues there. But that said, what they showed collectively this season was a major step forward. The defense going from the Achilles heel to top 10. The offense, once it finally started clicking, showing how dominant it can actually be. Carson Beck down the stretch was hands down one of, if not the best quarterback over the final month of the season. Malachi Toney going from hopefully the secret weapon to holy crap, teams are game planning against him. Let's show how good he really is. And still finding ways to use him in so many different ways. And remember, he should be playing for Heritage in their state semifinal going up to Fort Walton Beach this weekend right now. It's just absolutely incredible what this kid who turned 18 midseason has been able to do. 970 yards, 84 catches. He's one catch shy of tying Xavier Restrepo for most catches in a season by a Hurricane player ever. As a kid who just turned 18 a month and a half ago. Absolutely outstanding. Both lines of scrimmage, like Andre mentioned, that's how Cristobal built this team. It was building from the offensive and defensive lines out. The offensive line is basically with three guys who have been here for three plus years in Francis Malinois, soon to be first round pick at right tackle. Inez Cooper, who went from two-star, 3-star defensive tackle, converted into right guard and becoming a 4-year starter. Matt McCoy at left guard, and then the combo of Markel Bell and James Brockmeyer left tackle coming in. Markel Bell coming in 2 years ago, Brockmeyer coming in this offseason, and both just fitting right in. And then the D-line, a healthy Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor, just seeing that 1-2 punch together, just absolute domination. And something we hadn't been able to see in the 3 years because Mesidor was hurt 2 years ago. Bain was hurt last year. Now they're both together, plus the interior, Ahmad Moten breaking out and David Blay being great. It just, if you can win in the trenches, if you can win at the line of scrimmage, you have a good chance to win your football game. And then the other spots for me, seeing how improved the secondary was, because that was a breaking point last year. As soon as they went down 1 or 2 guys, they had nothing.
Right.
And then this year, they played this entire stretch, this entire final month without O.J. Frederick, who was the only competent cornerback they had down the stretch last season. And Xavier Lucas, Ethan O'Connor, Damari Brown all stepped up, and there was no drop-off. Yeah. Even without Keontae Scott, without Keontae Scott in the nickel, the final 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it was. Bryce Fitzgerald, a true freshman who was rotating in at safety, goes in at nickel and absolutely balls out. And then up at safety, Zechariah Poyser and Jacoby Thomas, 2 transfer portal guys, both dominant. It was just to see the collective. They hit on so many pieces in terms of what they added this offseason. And now it's a matter of continuing to build on that with what they did with signing day, with this 30-person class, with what they're going to have to do through the next transfer portal. And before we move on to that, just one guy who doesn't get a lot of love, who I do want to shout out, Carter Davis. Again, the kicking situation, we had no idea what was going to go on after losing after 2 generations of Borregales brothers who just kept that steady for so long. Right. Carter Davis comes in from FAU. They get Bert Auburn also from Texas. And the logic we're thinking is, okay, Bert Auburn's going to be the field goal guy. Carter Davis with the big legs going to be the kickoff guy. Carter Davis wins the job outright. Hits the game winner against Notre Dame, which, again, when we look back at Notre Dame game, we have to look back at Carter Davis. His first pressure cooker situation, nails it when they need him to. And he went 14 for 16 on the year. He basically, every time they needed him, he stepped up. Right. And he's a guy who isn't getting as much love because, again, everyone talks about the offense and the defense, but special teams, overall, between Carter Davis kicking, between Dylan Joyce's punting, between the little bit they were able to do in the return game and what they did in terms of stopping the opponent's return games, that took a major step forward this year as well. And that needed to take a major step forward because remember last year, they had their game against Louisville was a shootout, mostly in part because they able to kick off return touchdown right when they were starting to get their momentum going. They had a few other lapses there that allowed opponents to get great field position. They were able to win the field position battle a lot because of what they were able to do on special teams. And that helped swing some things in their favor this year as well.
It's replaced Andy Voragalis, who's now kicking for the team with the best record in the NFL, the New England Patriots right now. Yeah. And real quick, Poyser, hit of the year the other day.
Oh, that was absolutely fantastic.
I mean, that
absolutely
was
fantastic
all season. Speaking of Poyser, I wanted to drop that little side note in there when you mentioned
that. Was you heard everyone in the press box give a collective, oh,
yeah.
The second half,
I might have been turning away from the TV, and then when the hit happened, I was like, oh damn. It's like one of those, because that was good. That was like old school and legal hit too, which was good.
Yes.
You don't get the
you don't get much of that anymore.
Yeah, a lot of times they don't, players these days sometimes don't know how to do it, or sometimes the referees are so on edge that they'll call targeting anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good to see that. But yeah, let's finish this up by talking a little bit about this signing class, Jordan. Some of them, not so many as in previous years, very few, only one from either Dade or Broward, Jordan Campbell from Northwestern. Beyond that, I mean, nearby Dade and Broward, you had Mallory.
JV Mallory from West Boca is basically right on the border of Palm Beach and Broward. I mean, I counted him. Yeah. I counted Palm Beach, Dade, and Broward in this, but still only two from the South Florida 3 counties, which is not a lot.
Mallory, I can tell you from watching him, I saw him against Chaminade, against a legit team back in the preseason of high school this year. I mean, this kid has size and speed, good combo. Like Miami's backfield is loaded already. This kid coming in is going to be interesting to put him back there too, because he's a beast. So a good get for them. But tell us a little bit about some of the other guys from other states that they were able to pick up.
Yeah, well, I mean, the highlight of the class, we have to start with Jackson Cantwell, offensive lineman out of Missouri, and he was, depending on which recruiting ranking service you use, he was anywhere in the top 5 nationally among the entire class. And he certainly looks the part. He's got size at 6'6", 6'7". He has the national record in the shot put for a high schooler. So he has the brute strength there.
Yeah.
And he's going to be needed because, again, you look at Miami's offensive line, Francis Malianoa is 99.9999999% chance going to the NFL draft.
You missed a man.
Yeah, I missed at least one that I was cutting off because at some point you're going to round up to 100, and I can't fully say 100 yet until we know what he's doing. Inez Cooper is out of eligibility. Markel Bell most likely is gone. I believe he has a chance for an extra year if he wants because of that whole JUCO rule that got taken into effect. So I believe he could get another year if he wants. I don't know if he's going to take it. And James Rockemeyer is gone. So you have anywhere from 3 to 4 of your starting offensive linemen are gone. He's going to slide right in at one of those tackle spots. By day one next season, barring an injury, he's going to be starting on that offensive line and just going to fit right in. And they're hoping that he fits in seamlessly for Malianoa. A couple other spots, they're wide receivers. They're long. They got Milan Paris from the Ohio area. He's 6'6". Samarian Wingo from St. Augustine, I believe he's 6'3", 6'4". And then Vince Spafford from Mission Viejo, California. He's a little on the smaller side, 5'10", but he's fast and he fits that slot receiver role that Shannon Dawson loves to utilize in his offense. So you got 3 really good receivers. Tyron Evans from the North Carolina area is also in that wide receiver class. And then got to go to, I'm going to talk about the DBs, mostly just because I wanted to say one name in there. Camden Portis, son of Clinton Portis. So there we go. We got a legacy in there, but this DB class overall is pretty good. They have 7 defensive backs that they brought in, 6 or 7 defensive linemen, depending on where you look at Campbell. He's sort of a tweener between linebacker and D-line. I see him more as just basically being on the edge, but that's just me. The O-line, they got 6 guys, and between Jackson Cantwell and Joel Irvin from the Fort Myers area, I think both of those guys have the ability to be plug-and-play guys right away. And you mentioned Javian Mallory. I like Darian Coleman, the quarterback they have out of Orlando Jones. He's
a lot.
He's really good. I like him just watching a little bit of what I've been able to see from him on the high school side of the last couple of years, I think he's going to be good. Obviously, he's going to be a guy who's going to most likely have to redshirt his first year, which we already know that the Hurricanes are probably going to go portal again for a quarterback this year anyway. But if you do the portal this year and then you have Coleman and Luke Nickel as your options going into 2027, I like those options with Nickel having 2 years in the system and Coleman having a year to learn and get up to speed with the college side.
Jones is in the state semifinals this week, and I believe Coleman's TD total at the time, I think, is either 32, 33, something like that. You know how many picks he's thrown this year, Jordan?
I think it's just one, right? I think he finally threw one last week. Yeah. I think Chris Smith said he threw one last week.
I was so excited to say that.
I know.
But still,
yeah.
I mean,
25 touchdowns to 1 interception, completing 76% of his passes for 2,400 yards in 13 games.
It's still sick. And
ran for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns with a 100-yard rushing game.
Right, because these numbers sort of remind me of a certain quarterback that led Miami to the nation's best offense a year ago. And I was about to tell you, physically, like his frame reminds me also of him too a little bit. He has that. He's tall. He's got that. He can move. Not like a super fast scrambler, but enough to make plays on the run, that sort of thing. And did it against last year. Heritage had the better team in that state championship game overall, but that was a close game. And funny that you had him dueling with Malachi, playing a quarterback at the time as well. That was a great game. I think Heritage won. I don't remember the exact final score. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but it was something like 40-31. It was one of those type. But Coleman balled out like
41-31. You were really close, Trey.
41-31. I remember he you take him out of that game and it's a blowout victory for Heritage. I mean, it was evident how good this kid is, and I can only imagine if they get there again this season and they have a rematch. I'm a little worried for Heritage, or if they get into that, because this kid looks like he's that much better this season than he was last year, and he was already pretty darn good last season. So, which is also a good sign for Miami. This kid looks like he can continue to develop, get even better than he is right now. Smart quarterback player, overall player, and I mean, it sets them up pretty good. I mean, I know they're gonna hit the portal on top of everybody that you just said right now to add even more depth, but you've got 2 good options if you want to go in-house once Carson Beck leaves.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do portal-wise. Obviously, quarterback will be the top priority there. And other than that, I think linebacker is probably the only real spot where they're going to need to make a push. I mean, you're losing Wesley Basant and Motore. They'll still have, I believe, Raul Popo-Aguirre still has 1 more year left, but that's only one spot. And then you have your guys your depth pieces who really didn't do much. Aguirre still has 1 more year, but you signed 2 guys in this class. You have a lot of other guys who haven't really done much, but have a lot of a chance for the rotation. But knowing Mario and how he operates, and knowing defense coordinator Corey Heatherman, who Royals Award finalist, one of 15 finalists for Assistant Coach of the Year, well deserved for how he completely overhauled that Miami defense. He's the linebacker coach. He's going to want he's going to want at least 1 or 2 established guys in that room.
Right.
So they're going to try to go for at least 1 linebacker, ideally 2 in the portal this year. Those 2 quarterback, and then really wherever else to basically just beef up spots. Maybe a defensive lineman, maybe an offensive lineman, just get some veterans in there, because they'll have a lot of guys, but it's just in terms of having the experience at those positions. But that's still about a month away before we can even start thinking about worrying about that, just knowing who's in, who's out, who's staying, who's leaving. But right now their focus is going to be on what comes on Sunday at noon, and then determining how they move forward from there, whether they are one of the 12 teams or not.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back next week. Jordan and I will be back to talk a little bit about just what happened. Either they're getting left out, or we'll be looking ahead to the matchup that Miami has earned in the college football playoff. We'll be back at that point with all the highlights. We'll put it that way. I'm sure it'll be one way or the other. It'll be a very entertaining Mario Cristobal. I think even if it turns out positively their way, there may be a bit of a puffing your chest out a little bit. To say kind of like, a little bit of a damn right type of thing coming from Miami. Don't be surprised. But anyway, we'll be back next week. Thanks for watching as always on YouTube. Remember to catch us at MiamiHerald.com. We put this up today a little bit later than normal just because of signing day. We wanted to get all that info in there for you, talk a little bit about the recruiting class, but we'll be back at our usual time next week. Until then, for Jordan McPherson, I'm Andre Fernandez. Enjoy the conference championships and that Sunday selection show, everybody.